Columbus Worthington Air and Bryant Heating and Cooling are committed to keeping your family cool this summer. Schedule your annual AC system check now with Columbus Worthington Air for only $89. Visit us at cwaohio.com. And remember, you can't spell trust without us.
10 TV News is sponsored by Perfect Power Wash.
This is an emergency situation.
Our area is experiencing unprecedented heat right now, and it's definitely a health concern.
We're doing a lot of unprecedented things to deal with an unprecedented time.
People without power for hours without an explanation from AEP. How do you guys, in good conscience, explain how that was handled?
There wasn't the ability to have a heads up. This was an emergency.
What message would you have to the people out there who are frustrated, who are in the dark?
We're sorry. I mean, that's one thing. We're sorry.
We have seniors out in here that need to get on oxygen.
Our hospitals are getting busy with people coming in for heat-related illness.
They need to get to the doctor, so please do everything that you can to hurry. Please hurry.
We have breaking news just into our newsroom tonight. Columbus police just confirmed 3 people have been shot at one of the city's cooling centers. This happened just minutes ago at the Glenwood Community Center on Fairmont Avenue. We're working to learn their conditions at this time and get more information. We do have multiple crews headed to the scene, and we'll update you as soon as we can. Again, 3 people shot at a cooling center at the Glenwood Community Center tonight. All right, our coverage of this sweltering heat continues at this hour, and right now thousands of people still don't have power, and they're being forced into these record-breaking temperatures. I'm Yolanda Harris, and my co-anchor Andrew Kinsey is live at one of the several cooling centers out at Dodge Park. He's at that one. Andrew?
Yeah, Yolanda, and tonight we are working to figure out why so many here in Columbus are in the dark and remain in the dark tonight. We have team coverage across Columbus. Bennett Haberly asking AEP Ohio about what went wrong. Our Richard Solomon is keeping an eye on who is being hit the hardest. Meteorologist Ross Caruso is tracking when we could see some relief from these hot temperatures. But first, let me show you exactly how serious this heat is and the issue of no power, no AC. 10 TV reached out to EMS and fire about how many heat emergency runs crews did from yesterday and today. The numbers staggering, concerning in fact. Between 8 a.m. yesterday and 8 a.m. today, crews were called to more than 1,000 different calls for help. There were 143 calls for difficulty breathing, 93 fire alarms, and 15 calls for heat emergencies. We talked to the PIO with Columbus Fire.
The Division of Fire typically responds to about 500 to 600 runs a day. Yesterday we hit almost 1,000. And so that's a combination of the heat and the power issues that create a lot more difficulty breathing runs because of the humidity and heat. Oxygen tanks need refilled for those members that are vulnerable. So yeah, it's a huge demand on resources.
Top concern for the elderly, those most vulnerable, and those with underlying health conditions at this hour. A big question many asking right now, including yourself probably, how did we get here? How did this happen? Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haberly took that question directly to AEP headquarters in Gahanna today to get you answers. He joins us live now with what he found out. Bennett.
Andrew, we had a lot of questions for AEP officials. Chief among them, an explanation for why so many people were forcibly, purposely removed from the power grid. That wasn't the only key question. Here was another one you're about to hear. What message would you have to the people out there who are frustrated, who are in the dark, who are dealing with the heat?
We're sorry. I mean, that's one thing. We're sorry. This is not something, the very last thing that we want to do is outage a customer. The very last thing we want to do. From an emergency standpoint, we're doing this to protect the integrity of the entire grid.
John Williams with AEP Ohio said it was critical that the power company forcibly remove thousands of customers from the electrical grid to prevent further damage and longer outages. The explanation we were given, that storms from Monday night damaged high-voltage transmission lines. As repair work was being done on those, the high intense heat we've experienced was creating overloads, putting stress on the system, prompting the power company to purposely cut off electricity to thousands.
There was no indication of the fact when you guys took people off service, there was no heads up that that was going to happen.
There wasn't the ability to have a heads up. This was an emergency. So as other transmission lines picked up the load, added the load, what happens is the load shedding that had to occur to support those other transmission lines that are overloading, they had to be brought down, and it's an automatic grid protection, grid-enabled situation.
The state's Public Utility Commission says the call to remove customers from power came from above AEP, from the grid manager, PJM, which acts like an air traffic controller for the grid, covering 13 states, including Ohio.
They're kind of the air traffic controller of our electric grid, and so it was them, PJM, that ordered AEP Ohio to conduct these outages to protect the grid.
An AEP spokesman says it was the company's decision, but likely that they would have been directed by PJM to act had they done nothing.
We do have this under control, and we're going to solve this problem, and we'll solve it here in the next few days.
Now, the other big question that a lot of people have out there is power restoration. When am I going to get my power back on? That remains a bit tentative, a bit fluid. Right now, AEP officials have said that they believe it will be Thursday night by midnight. The majority of the Columbus metro area will be back online and have their power restored. If you look at this outage map, though, you can see there are people who are living in these red circles that cover a major corridor throughout the city of Columbus. Those people living in those areas could experience additional outages as repair work is being done to bring people back up on the grid. We're going to toss it now back over to Andrew, who's at one of the city's cooling centers where people are there trying to combat the heat. Andrew?
Yeah, Bennett, that is right. And earlier today, Mayor Ginther spoke to the media to update us on ways that the city is working with the county to help people stay safe in this heat. Today, the mayor mentioned starting conversations with county leaders about adding additional funding to help with emergency response. Listen.
So we've already started conversations with the county and other partners. This may be a place where rescue plan dollars or other things could be put to use to help families bounce back and recover from this.
Yeah. Okay, back here live at Dodge Park off of Sullivan Avenue. As we mentioned at the top of this newscast, there is breaking news, unfortunately, today. A shooting at Glenwood. That is one of the 7 cooling centers set up to help residents across the city with beating this heat. I'm joined by Council President Shannon Harding now. Unfortunately, we're dealing with this situation. If you would provide us an update on what you're being told about that breaking news right now.
Certainly. We, just like folks are hearing, that there has been a shooting at Glenwood. What we know is that our officers who are performing in very dangerous, hot weather, they're out there and they're doing their job. We're also appreciative for the recreation center staff and the lifeguards who are out there. But at the end of the day, it is hot out. People are frustrated. People are at their limits, not being able to stay cool in their homes. And so we as a community are trying to come together to provide those outlets, those release valves, so folks can have a safe, cool evening tonight. Our job is to keep people safe today and tomorrow as we go through this emergency.
We want to provide you a live shot at the scene right now. Council President, if people can't feel safe at these cooling centers, how can we get them to come to these doors to actually use these centers?
Well, I would say that these cooling stations are still safe, that we are working around the clock to make sure that every corner of our neighborhood feels safe. But we also have to acknowledge that people are frustrated today. They are tired. We're dealing with folks who have been out in the heat all day. And so we're trying to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to provide safe, cool spaces for them to cool off, to take a breath. We have to know that some folks are going to go home and they're still not going to have heat or air conditioning. They're still going to be in the heat, in the dark. And so we're asking everybody for a little grace tonight with your neighbor, with your loved ones. Make sure we're checking on one another, because these are the times when tempers boil over.
Unfortunately, we're dealing with 2 crisis situations here: the heat, the power outage, and a situation our city is unfortunately known to have to deal with, which is crime and concerns across our city. Yeah. Council President, thank you so much for your time and your information on that situation. Yolanda, let's get it back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Andrew. We're going to see you in just a few minutes, but let's continue our team coverage with Doppler 10 meteorologist Ross Caruso. And Ross, boy, you said it's around 6 o'clock it was going to feel like 103 degrees.
Yeah, and you know, there's a good chance it's going to feel like it's into the 90s past midnight tonight, because we're talking about temperatures that are only going to fall into the 70s, and we have dew points that are just falling right behind that. So when you factor in an air temperature of 92, dew point of 75, feels like 103. So anytime you see dew points over 60 degrees, that just lets you know that the air is extremely uncomfortable out there. And essentially from the start of the day, which by the way, we not only set a record for the hottest day of the year, but we set a record for our record highest low temperature, which was 73. Well, we only got to 77 for us overnight. So we started at 77 this morning, made it all the way to 94, and we've been in the 90s essentially since lunchtime, and we're continuing to feel like we're into the triple digits out there. We're going to continue to talk about some high heat, not only tomorrow, but still pretty warm for us on Friday with highs into the mid to upper 80s, but some relief on the way, plus some potential for stronger storms heading into your Thursday afternoon. I'll highlight that and the triple digit heat, how long it'll last, coming up.
All right, thanks, Ross. And we are continuing to follow a developing news situation. We told you about 3 people shot at one of the cooling centers in Columbus. We do have a crew at the scene. You're looking live right now. This is a live shot at that area at Glendale. The recreation center there was one of the cooling centers, and we're told that 3 people have been shot. This is the last thing anybody needs. So we are working to get you updates, and we will have more coming up. So stay with us.
10 TV's Digital Broadcast Center is sponsored by Lindsay Honda.